Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Bacon and Coffee. And I'm going to start us off with our 30-second countdown. Here we go. Awesome sauce. And here we go with our theme song to get us rocking and rolling, get your energy up, get that caffeine kicking in. All right. That's my best Matthew McConaughey. I would like to welcome back to the show Mark S.A. Smith, a serial guest, not a serial killer. I don't think you've ever killed a box of cereal. You may have finished a few, but I don't think you've ever stabbed one. But how are you today, my friend? And I always have to do the where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
I am happy, healthy, and loved. And I am currently in Orlando. I've decided to extend my stay here. I'm having so much fun. I'm living just half a mile south of SeaWorld. So this afternoon, I'm going to go see live music at SeaWorld.
Nice.
5 concerts at SeaWorld, 5 live concerts. And if you hold a beer in your hand up to your lips, you can keep the mask off the entire time that you're watching the show. So there's 3 more, actually tonight's tribute bands. But last weekend, I got to see Night Ranger and Blue Oyster Cult. And 2 of my old favorite 70s bands. Oh, Night Ranger still is amazing. I was truly blown away. Blue Oyster Cult was a little tired. But then again, they had not seen each other for 4 months. That's one of the downsides of the pandemic we've been going through is that bands they've kind of lost their edge because they're not working together. So I am happy and healthy and getting to see some live music, which just restores my soul.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of live music, do you know what day today is?
I do know what day is because you clued me in.
Right. Asia. So I'm going to sing. I'm going to sing the Asia song. Countdown. It's the final countdown. Yep. It's 4, 3, 2, 1 day.
Dun, 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 dun.
That is awesome.
4, 3, 2, 1. That's right.
Yep. So, my friend, tell us about what you're up to. What's happening in your world?
Well, today I want to talk about, there's oodles and oodles and oodles of things happening in my world. Probably the most exciting thing is that I'm working on my 15th book, which is entitled Wise Leadership Valor, How to Make More $1 Million Deals, Kick Out the Pirates, and Completely Control Your Future. And in the midst of interviewing 100 CEOs, my editor is absolutely whipping my back to interview these CEOs for killer quotes under those 4 topics. And really, the book breaks down into 4 areas. Number 1 is leadership valor. And valor is the concept of how do you handle tough situations. It's easy to lead in good times. How do you handle hard times? And we really dig into that concept in that book. Lots of great stories about leading through difficult times. The second one is how do you make more $1 million deals, which is the new approach to selling, where you can sell lots more, a lot faster. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Thank you very much. The third pillar is kick out the pirates. Every organization has somebody that's in there to steal from them, either at the high level trying to steal the company or at the low level just stealing office supplies. And how do you detect them? How do you get rid of them? How do you keep them out? And I have never seen a book on that topic, although in the work that I do with my CEO clients, I've had to kick out way too many pirates with them, and it's just no freaking fun. It's very expensive, and there's no reason for that to happen. So interesting things I'm learning from the CEOs and the research that I'm doing for that. And the final one is how do you completely control your future? And that's all about marketing. And of course, you and I talk about that all the time. But what I'd like to talk about today is the sales component. Let's do that. What do you think?
I muted myself. I know. I did mute myself because I know we're having an Amazon delivery, which means my dog is going to be barking soon. So, so yeah.
Well, it's okay. This is the new reality show. Dogs
it is.
bark. People banging on the window.
Yes. She had a blast yesterday when the landscapers came. She just like wanted to go out and play with them because they're driving around tractors and she wanted to chase them. So she's having a good time. But yeah, no, we're going to talk about some marketing and some sales stuff today. And that's usually why I bring you on, is because you are the sales guru, my friend. And you know a lot about this stuff and you've seen just about everything. So we're going to be talking about highly effective sales prospecting. But you wanted to talk about something first. And what's that?
I did. I want to lead into that concept of why do people hate sales? A lot of people hate sales, but the reality is the sales is the lifeblood of every business. And in the creation of this book, one of the things that I've been really digging into is that a business leader is not effective unless they understand how to round up sales. Because without sales, your business cannot exist. And that works also for nonprofits. You have to have income to run a nonprofit. So no matter what the organization, you have to figure out how to flow cash in. And that means some form of sales. But a lot of people hate sales. In fact, let's just play a game here for a second. When you think of the word salesperson, or let's use the word salesman, what other words come to mind? Just kind of shout them out at me. What do you think?
Vacuum cleaners, Glenn Ross, always be closing, ABC.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Manipulative. And it's interesting because I'll ask this question to a group of salespeople and they always come up with these really horrible things. And I say, what are you talking about? This is what you do for a living. And this is how you think when you hear the word salesman. And it's ubiquitous. It's universal. It's insane. Well, there's a reason behind this. And the reason is that the fundamental approach that we take to selling is based on manipulation. In 1928, Edward Bernays wrote the book Propaganda. Are you familiar with that book, Brian?
I'm not familiar with that book, but I've heard of Bernays. So
yeah, that's right. It's usually a sauce on top of a steak called steak Diane, but that's a little different.
As opposed to hollandaise too. Don't forget about that.
That's exactly right. Oh, that's right. Hollandaise is Bernays without the tarragon. But that's another topic. That's the cooking show that you and I can do someday. But Edward
it's Bernays a topping topic
called Propaganda, and he's considered to be the father of. Can't top that. But he is considered the father of PR, public relations. And I suggest that you and everybody listening to this get a copy of the book Propaganda by Edward Bernays. You can get it on Amazon. It's not very expensive, but it really is the formation of what happens in Madison Avenue, what happens in fundamental marketing. Every president since the 1920s up through Jimmy Carter consulted with Bernays in how to implement policy. And what Bernays introduced was the concept of manufactured consent. And that is gaining people's consent manipulatively without them realizing that they are being manipulated, which is the basis of propaganda. All fake news is based on Edward Bernays' work, and all manipulation of people's mindset is based on Edward Bernays' work. All great marketing is based on Edward Bernays' work. You need to understand the concept of manufactured consent. Now, I'm not suggesting that you use that approach unless you need to do something that's extreme. What we would prefer to do is work with people in informed consent. So let's dial back to the concept of sales. Almost every sales technique taught today, and actually over the past 80 or so years, have been based on the concept of manipulated or manufactured consent. And that's the whole idea behind Always Be Closing. It's the idea behind Objection Busters. It's the idea behind the Ascending Yes. All of that is based on propaganda. And that's the reason why people that have an open heart and open mind hate sales. Right. Because they realize it's manipulative. They realize that they're jerking people's chain. And the reason why a salesman could walk into a woman's house and sell her a $1,000 vacuum is because of manufactured consent. And they do so by manipulating the best parts of humanity for their own purposes. This is why you hate sales. All right. What we want to do instead is the way that you can love sales and actually be substantially more successful is to move to informed consent. So moving from manufactured consent to informed consent. Now, manufactured consent works. It absolutely works, but it only works once or twice. And in our ascending generations, manipulation is not working. It doesn't work for millennials, and Gen Z will absolutely throw you aside and under the bus if you use any kind of manipulation and they detect it. So what that means is going forward, we must start using informed consent versus manufactured consent. So,
and I've got a concept on that.
The approach that we can take on sales, and all right.
Okay.
Go for it. I want to hear
So
it.
I think the difference between manufactured consent and informed consent is going to a car dealership and you know what the system is like there. You know, it is very manipulative. They get you in, they see if you're interested, they sit you down, they give you a price, and then you start this whole negotiation process, and it goes up the food chain to the manager and yada, yada, yada. And then, you know, you go through the financing, which is a whole nother gross manipulation. But then you've got this thing now called Carvana, which is, you know, car vending machines. So that is informed consent. You know what you want to get. You know what you're getting.
Well,
it's
they have
one
down
standard
the
price
road here.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So is that close to what you're talking about?
Yeah, they have one just down the road. And yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the reason why CarMax and Carvana and other of these online informed consent companies are just killing the dealerships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right, continue.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing. It's like the Carvana machine down the road is here in Orlando. It looks like a gumball machine, but it's full of cars instead of gumballs.
Cool. Big gumballs.
It's cool. Yeah, serious. Yeah, big, expensive gumballs. A quarter won't get you one. Sorry, a quarter of 100,000 might, but not a quarter. So let's just take a look at the dynamic range here. When in the world of exchange, there are fundamentally four flavors of exchange. We have criminal exchange, where somebody rips you off, and then we have an incomplete exchange, where they give you part of what you expected. Then we have fair exchange, where you get what you expected. And then we have abundant exchange, where you get more than you expected. And you can probably think of companies that do that abundant exchange type of situation, and they're the ones that really succeed today. Mm-hmm. Well, if you take a look at this and put it on the scale of reviews, 1 to 5 star reviews, criminal exchange is a 1. And in fact, that's usually what happens is when people are writing 1 star reviews, do not go with these people. They are thieves. They will rip you off. Okay, that's down at the end of manufactured consent. And then you move up to a 2 star review, which is unequal exchange, unfair exchange. And that's where, you know, I was ripped off, and you don't need to go there. And then you have a 3 star review, which does not exist in the wild. A 3 star review rarely exists because it's neutral. You don't feel ripped off. You don't really feel satisfied. You just sort of sit in the middle. That's why you don't see them. It's 1, 2, 4, and 5 star reviews. So a 4 star review is equal exchange. Got what I paid for. I'm happy. Then a 5 star review is, wow, this was way better than I expected. And that is the informed consent end of the sales approach. So our approach to sales is stop playing the 1 star game and let's start playing the 5 star game if you're going to really want to love sales. So how do we do informed consent versus manufactured consent? It's really simple. You ask questions. All right, let's just break this down for a second. When it comes to our success as a sales professional, 50% of our success is based on the motivation of our customer. Do they want what we're offering? Do they desire what we are offering? Is it important to them? How important is it to them? It doesn't matter how cheap we are or how good we are. If they don't desire it, if they're not motivated to purchase it, we're not going to get there. We could even offer it to them for free, and they would still say, no, thanks. In fact, you've probably experienced that. So motivation is 50% of our success. 40% of our success is the relationship that we create with them. Do they believe us? Do they trust us? Do they think that we are acting in their best interest? And this is the place where we have the difference between informed consent and manufactured consent. And manufactured consent fakes trust. It fakes the relationship, and we know it. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we usually feel ripped off after we've worked with somebody who's done manufactured consent. No, they pretend that we're our friend, and when we need something, they turn on us. So even if they're completely motivated in that 50%, and this 40%, if they don't have that relationship and they don't trust us and they don't believe in us, they're not going to buy from us. They can buy from somebody else because they know that we're not going to have a complete fair exchange. Then 1%, or rather 10%, 10% of our success is our product. And let's be real. There's 1,000 ways to solve a person's problem. We're not the only one. Unless you have 100% of the marketplace, you're not the best. Sorry. And yet a lot of salespeople focus on the 10%, And the reality is the heart of selling is the 90%. That 90% is where we do all our work. So if we use this approach, you focus on understanding the person's motivation, and you create a relationship, and you can sell them anything that satisfies them. That's informed consent. The traditional approach to selling has been, let's talk about the product. Let's talk about the features, the advantages, and the benefits, which is traditional selling. That was invented by John Patterson in 1886 to sell cash registers to people who were using cigar boxes and scraps of paper to account for their sales. And we're still using, or a lot of people are still using, this antiquated approach. We can't do that anymore because we have informed buyers, so therefore we have to use informed consent. So that approach of features, advantages, and benefits is an attempt to map the product to the customer's motivation. That's manufactured consent. So we have this feature, we think this is advantageous for you, and the problem is that we may present a feature they do not find advantageous nor beneficial, in which we create an objection. So this is the second reason why people don't like selling, is because customers go, I don't think so. You know, you're sitting there, oh, this is the best possible product. You're going to love this product. And they go, no, it's a piece of crap. No, go away. Leave me alone. All right. So people fear that rejection and they take it personally. And the reality is, if you flip it around and understand their motivation, they're not rejecting your product. They're just saying, no, it's not right for me. In which case you're saying, you know, you're right. There's a lot of things in my life that's not right for me. I don't go to a buffet and eat everything on the buffet. You know, you're not rejecting the buffet. You're just saying, no, those things over there are not for me. So we can reclaim our love for selling if we just stop focusing on making people say, oh, I got to buy the product, versus, is this product right for you? Mm-hmm. And so it's that mapping of their motivation to the product that is informed consent, versus mapping the product to their motivation, which is the concept of manufactured consent. With me so far?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Insights. I want to see your insights on that before we move to the next section.
Yes. Well, immediately what comes to mind is what I consider to be, you know, you're familiar with the hero's journey. I always talk about the buyer's journey and the open process.
Absolutely.
And the open process has 4 components to it. It is oblivious, pondering, engaged, in need. And so when we're going through that process, oblivious, I always use dog food as the example. Dog food is somebody is, you know, trying to sell dog food to cat people because they think they have pets. So that makes it, you know, hey, they may buy this thing. It's the old adage of everybody who's got a wallet and breathes is going to buy your stuff, right? That's open. That's the oblivious side. The pondering is, we're thinking about getting a dog. At that point, they don't care what kind of dog food you sell. They just want to know that you sell dog food. They don't care if it's kibble, if it's raw food, if it's wet food, whatever it is. They just want to know that you sell dog food. The engaged people are the ones that are researching and thinking about buying something. So they will look into the educational side of things. And that would be, you know, what is the difference between dry food and wet food? And what is the difference between Old Roy and Nutro or whatever brands? You know, they're starting to educate themselves. And then the need portion comes when they have the dog in hand, it's in the car. And if they don't bring it into the store to figure out what's the difference between Chihuahua food and Great Dane food, you know, the dog will die if they don't feed it. So they have needs. So they're going to go to the expert, and that relationship that you build throughout that process, you don't care about the oblivious, but, you know, the pondering, engaged, and need. Those are 3 pieces where you need to communicate with people differently. So does that make sense in the sales cycle as far as you're concerned?
Absolutely. In fact, that's a perfect segue to the conversation I want to have about prospecting. Because
awesome.
Prospecting is where you catch people in that journey. That's exactly what it is. So let's talk about how to make sales fun again. And that is about prospecting the right possible way. Now, there is what I consider to be the one most powerful prospecting strategy. Of course, the concept of prospecting is to find people who are ready to say yes. They've gotten past the will I purchase, which is that's phase 2 that you just talked about, and to move to the which one. And that's what sales does. It moves people from will I buy to which one will I buy. And then customer service is, will I buy again from you? Those are the questions that we're asking at those phases. So the one prospecting strategy we want to use is to support our target customers' most burning desire that we can solve. What is that? And I got to tell you, in the world of business, it's two things: get promoted or make more money. That's it. They are buying from you in a business to business environment because they see that purchase is moving them down their career path. Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Every sales purchase in the B2B world is a career decision at some level. And if you can understand sales from that viewpoint, you're absolutely solid. Now, from a business to consumer standpoint, the decision is, will I enhance my relationship with the person I like to have sex with?
Here's my take on that. What I always say about the difference between B2B sales and B2C sales is B2C sales. If you buy the wrong thing in B2C as a consumer, you end up sleeping on the couch. All right.
That's it.
If you buy the wrong thing in the business world, you end up sleeping at a homeless shelter because you get fired and you can't afford your house. Right?
That's exactly what it is. We get down to the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy really quick. I mean, that's level one stuff. That is level one stuff. And listener, you might be laughing at us, but the reality is this is the root of why people buy. And when you get down to that root, it becomes a whole lot easier. And while we may not discuss that actively, just understand in the back of everybody's mind, they're making those kind of decisions. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule because all generalizations are false, including this one. But that said, this rule of a concept of target your customer's most burning desire, which is to get promoted and make more money, or be able to sleep in the bed with your partner, that is their most burning desire. Now, the way that we do this is with visibly improved key performance indicators that support their career path or their relationship path. And in B2C, it's about trust. It's about making good choices. It's about supporting their joint lifestyle. That's the key performance indicator. You're empathetic. You're delivering what they want. And in business, the key performance indicators are based on the role that they're playing. But if you can visibly support their key performance indicators, it becomes so much easier because that drives their motivation. We talked about the 50% motivation. What we're talking about is, how do you understand that? How do you get under that so that you can support it so that they can go, ooh, yes, I like that. So what is prospecting? It's a mining term that's applied to sales. And the key strategy is, number one, pursue the mother lode, not the flake or nuggets. That's what we want to do. We want to find the mother lode, not the flake or the nuggets. That's not what we want. So number two is to find the clues that which are lookalike gold mines have high probability. So if you find something that has a similar look to your other gold mine, it's going to have a high probability that this one's going to be a gold mine too. And then number three is sample quickly, which is panning for gold. That's how they would sample to find if they're in a gold field, to hone in on the mother lode. And you probably heard the word "that didn't pan out." The word "that did not pan out" comes from prospecting, where they would go and grab some gravel and they would work the gravel and there was no gold in there. So that didn't pan out. Isn't that amazing?
That is. That is, and it's funny because I've used finding the gold nuggets in a lot of my marketing in the past, and I never really realized that key phrase. And so, the mother lode side of things, what does that mean? What do you mean when you say, finding the mother lode? So the first thing you talked about.
All right. So first of all, it's LODE, not LOAD.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just want to make sure that the word load is LODE, which means cash or concentration, versus load the heaviness or something else. We load out the load. So so the mother lode is where you have a high yeah. So the mother lode is where we have a very high concentration of gold. In the world of mining and in the world of sales, it means we have a high concentration of somebody's desire to purchase from you, and ideally purchase from you over and over and over again. So when it comes to prospecting, what we do is we can go from a low value prospect to a high value prospect. So a low value prospect is one transaction. And you might do that by cold calling for a single transaction. And that is brutal. That is hard work, because when you're cold calling, what you're looking for is somebody who has made the decision to go from will I, yes, I will, to which one. And you're going to catch that person between those two phases of will I and which one. If you call people and they haven't gotten to will I, that's a no. Because no, I'm not willing. I'm willing. And you cold call and they go, oh, I'm glad you called because we've been thinking about this. All right, that's what cold calling does. This is the reason why you have to talk to 100 people to talk to 2 people that might be interested, because of the averages of somebody being in that point of will I, yes, to which one. So,
and I want to bring up a point on that. Okay, so the point on that is that, when you look at advertising and marketing, okay, when we do Google ads, Facebook ads, any kind of marketing, email marketing, things of that nature, you send out a sales e-letter, you send out something in the mail. It doesn't matter how you do it. And we consider this the spray and pray methodology. You're going to get a 1 to 2% return. So that is something, I'm big on the numbers with the 80%, 80-20 rule. But in marketing and sales, that 1 to 2% of that spray and pray methodology is pretty consistent across the board. If you talk to 1,000 people, you will get, basically 10 people interested in what you have. And out of those 10 people, you might close 1. Right? Or 2.
Right. And
what?
Yeah, that's right. And it's strictly because of where we catch them in their purchasing cycle. That's all there is to it. Pure and simple. It's not that those other people aren't interested. They're just not interested now. And that's the reason why marketing has to be a process, not an event. And then if you mail back to that list, you'll get another 2%. And if you mail back to that list, you'll get another 2% because those people are a moving parade. And the next 2% are like, oh, yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, that's exactly right. So one and done does not work in the world of marketing. You have to have this continuous parade. That's why marketing tends to be exponential. You market, and you go, oh, this stuff isn't working. And all of a sudden it's starting to work a little better. Boy, it's working even better. Whoa, look at how much money we're making from the marketing. And that happens about 18 months down the line. It's just fun. So one transaction is the prospecting level where you cold call for a single transaction, you eat. If you do that, you can eat. That's about it. Then the next is one customer, where you're pursuing an account for a big deal. So what we're doing is going after a larger relationship. So that might be, for example, a bid response, something like that. And if you can do that, you can make a living. You can indeed. If you use this approach of targeting a customer and developing the customer versus pursuing a transaction, right? If you pursue transactions, sales is brutal. If you pursue customers, sales can be fun. So then the next level up is you identify a target market. So you identify a field of new customers. This is our gold mine, our field of new customers who need you and want you, and then you can go win 50 to 80% of them. Now, if you do that, you get rich. So the ascension is one transaction, brutal, one customer, okay, target market, get rich. So let's talk about this for a moment. The prospecting objective is eat. So there, what you're doing is you're chasing gold nuggets. You learn the field, you get introductions, you build trust through performance. You can start here, but do not get stuck here. A lot of people start their career here, but do not get stuck here. The next objective is make a living. So that's have enough from the mind to live, have a family. And when the mind plays out, you have to move on. That's the concept of the customer stops buying from you. The mind plays out, the customer stops buying from you. So at this level, you can build skills, learn from the field, learn from the mind, but do not get comfortable here. The idea here is let's get rich. And this is where we have an ever expanding scope of deals. So it may take you 3 to 7 deals to discover the mother lode, which is the market that's going to buy from you over and over and over again. And here we're focusing on ever expanding relationships. Our job is to become the first and only choice. We create recurring revenue streams. And then what we have is these reference accounts that we can call upon to persuade and provide validation for our performance. And this allows you to impact the world. So the question is, where are you going to play in this? So let's talk about how you find the mother lode in gold territory. So first of all, keep track of the characteristics of people who say yes and those who say no. What is the profile of those who can say yes and the profile of those who can say no? Because you're guided to the gold field by moving away from the no gold field. So the no's are, nope, there's no gold there. So you migrate away to there, to the yes, where the gold does exist. Is this a useful metaphor for you.
It is a useful metaphor, but I think one of the concepts that you bring up and you've talked about a couple of things I want to jump in on. One is um, the sales cycle in consumer is way shorter than it is in the B2B space because people will take a longer time to make decisions.
Yep.
And the reason is because the effect that it has. It's much harder for them, to make a change from one vendor to another vendor because there's a process behind it. There is setting up POs. There's doing, sometimes they do Dun and Bradstreets on you. They'll do referrals. They need to know, like, and trust you. It just takes time to build that. So the core of what you're talking about in order to do any of this well is what I call relationship marketing. It's getting in there and not necessarily, going for the jugular and saying, buy, buy, buy. It's like, hey, how are you doing? What's happening? And then I think one of the cores of that is understanding when you're talking to people, because when you just talked about that is understanding the no's and the yeses, is having a good CRM system and understanding that when you talk to somebody that you're taking notes and that it is searchable and that it is data that you can use to, review and understand the concepts of what you're getting. Because when you're in the line of fire on a phone call, and you finish up like 4 or 5 days later and try to write notes about that is not the time to gather that intelligence. You should be doing it on the spot, right?
Absolutely. You've got to capture this information so that this is like the gold panning. When you have the conversations, they illustrate whether there's gold here or not. And you want to identify those characteristics of gold and identify those characteristics of no gold. So keeping notes and then referring to those notes are how you're going to figure this thing out. So, Brian, I think I sent you a graphic. If you want to put that up, let's talk about how we navigate gold territory. Is that something you can share with our viewer here very quickly?
Give me 1 second. I'll go ahead and do that quickly. Bear with me, but go ahead and keep talking while I'm getting that set up. All right. Go ahead.
Oh, that's no problem for me. All right. So the idea of what we're going to share with you here is the continuum of going from no gold to solid gold. And we're going to start off with that whole concept that Brian introduced a little sooner, where people are oblivious to where they're aware and where they're interested, and they decide that they have a need for it. And so we've mapped that actually quite cleverly here. These 4 are on. Brian's going to put this up on the screen. But in the oblivious area, in that area, what we want to do is seek to disqualify. And part of the reason why is because you don't have enough time as a salesperson to be a missionary. And that is to persuade somebody to go your particular way. Oh, here we are. Excellent. Thank you very much. So on the left-hand side, we have the no. There's no gold. And on the right-hand side, we have the solid gold, which is the yes. That's what we're looking for as a sales professional. So on the left-hand side, your action is to seek to disqualify. And the customer's state is they have no trust in you because they don't know you, or they have no want for you, desire for what you offer, or they have no need for what you offer. And that is Death Valley. And if you get stuck there as a salesperson, you're not going to make any money, and it's going to be miserable existence. Just absolutely miserable. It's a slow, miserable death. So if the customer is moved from that oblivious to that awareness cycle, what do you call it, Brian?
I call it open. It's open. It's oblivious, pondering, engaged in need.
Okay. So now we're in the open area where they're aware of it. And so there, your action is to put them into an in-touch cycle. How often are we going to touch them? So we remind them that while they go from will I to which one, that we are somebody to consider which one. And this is no man's land. This is where they have no money, or they have no hurry to make a purchase. So what we do in that particular case is we just ask them, how often would you like for me to be in touch with you? What would you like to know about this? How would you like to be informed on how to make your best possible choice? And then we move into the gold field, which is they've decided to decide. So pondering, that's the place that you make all the money. Oh, that's interesting. I like that. So this is where you move into the sell action. And this is where you get into their budget cycle and you get into their budget triggers. What's going to trigger that for them to commit, and then they get to the yes. So as you talk to somebody, you're going to qualify them or disqualify them based on your action on where they are in this particular purchasing cycle. And I want to go back for a moment, Brian, and talk about your observations about business to consumer and business to business, and use the word sales cycle. And I'd like for us to up level that to a different one, which is consideration cycle. B2C has a shorter consideration cycle. They think about things and they can take action faster. B2B tends to have a longer consideration cycle. And the reason why is because there are more people involved in getting to yes. And the more expensive the purchase, the longer it takes, because the more people have to have input, each one of them has a different criteria for judging value, and each one has a different yes set, something that they have to see to get to yes. And because of the multiple people involved, it tends to take a whole lot longer to get to the yes. So the consideration cycle is longer, which ends up with us being a longer sales cycle. Now, if we can move from manufactured consent to informed consent, we can shorten these consideration cycles. And the reason why is because with manufactured consent, people smell something, they don't trust us. If we move to informed consent, they trust us because they know that we're interested in their best outcome, whether they buy from us or not. If you're a salesperson, you just want your customer to get what they want, whether they buy from you or not becomes irrelevant. It's nice when they do, but the reality is that's what creates the trust for the next purchase cycle, because that's the old Miracle on 34th Street movie concept. Yes, indeed. Toilet paper math. You got it.
And the concept behind toilet paper math, so people understand it, is when, the toilet paper math is basically that what marketing does and this, I think, goes back to the manufactured consent, is when you buy the toilet paper in the aisle now, it says 9 equals 36 and 8 equals 120. And they're trying to make you feel like you're getting more for your money when actually you're getting less. Right, exactly. But the other side of that coin is, as a consumer, you can walk down the aisle and pick out a Charmin brand or a Northern brand or Scott's or whatever it is, and you can use it. And if you buy it and you don't like it, you basically can say, okay, I can toss this because it only cost me $10 or whatever it was, and go back and buy the brand you want. That same toilet paper in a corporate world, in a big business, you're buying toilet paper for home versus toilet paper for business, is they are going to buy it in bulk. They're going to buy for every bathroom for, the 100 people that work in the office. So they may buy, cases and cases of this stuff. And if it turns out to be, basically sandpaper, and people start complaining about it, you still have this stuff unless you have a return policy. And at that point, it becomes, a conflict, right? So is that a good example?
Mm-hmm. It's a great example, a really good example. Yeah, toilet paper is one of those things that we buy to throw away. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Don't skimp on toilet paper. Don't do that. That's not. Don't buy day old sushi. Don't skimp.
Life is too short.
Some of these principles of life. All right. Well, thank you. Why don't you take down that graphic? And what I want to do is talk about the characteristics of customers who deliver that gold. Mm-hmm. And number one is they are responsible. These are the people who are responsible for the outcome that you deliver or support. So if you're selling toilet paper to people, then you sell to the people that care about that toilet paper. They're responsible for that toilet paper. And if you're selling services, they're the people that are responsible for having those services brought into their organization. So their job is to deliver or avoid a specific outcome. So deliver an outcome or avoid a specific outcome, and will be rapidly replaced if they don't. That's the person you want to call on, because they have the urgency to have a powerful outcome. Now, they're looking for safe choices, not best choices, safest choice. Mm-hmm. One of the things you need to stop doing as a sales professional is stop declaring that you have the best technology, the best product, the best anything. Stop it, because you're lying and people know it. What are you talking about, Mark? I know we have the best. No, you don't. Do you own 100% of the market? You don't have the best. You have the best for part of the market, but you don't have the best for all of the market. And the problem is, using the word best is a judgment which others may disagree with, which is going to create friction between them, judging your product as being best for them or not. Safest is actually a better choice than best. And
Hmm.
remember, the reason why is because people are buying to improve their career or improve the relationship with the person they like to have sex with. Remember, that's it. It has to be a safe choice. So best is often safest. And if you invest, then of course it goes back to that concept of manufactured consent, especially if somebody doesn't know how to make a purchase decision and the salesperson says, oh, this is the best one. Oh, you don't want to use that one. It's not good at all. That's manufactured consent versus, well, what are you looking for, right? That's motivation. What motivates you? What are you looking for? What's the outcome you're looking to achieve or avoid? Okay, well, let's take a look at how you might achieve that. Well, here's our product, and our customers choose us because we can do this, 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 and this. And we have this return policy, and we have this support policy. And so, I'm here to back you up. If it doesn't work out, I'll take it back. It's really pretty simple. I want
Mhm.
you to be completely satisfied. That's the informed consent approach. And so when you can do that with somebody who's responsible for what you deliver or support, then it becomes a whole lot easier because you're talking to the person that is going to be impacted by the choice. And if you can support that choice, voila. Then number 2 is the people who are accountable for the outcome that you deliver or support. So Brian, for example, if you're like the typical household, you're responsible for the maintenance of the yard and the home and the car. And the person who's accountable for that is your spouse. Because if you don't get it done, she says, Brian, why haven't you done this? So responsible is the person who responds and delivers the service. The person who's accountable is the one who keeps score. That's why we call it accountable. It's a scorekeeper. All of us have scorekeepers. Every one of us has a scorekeeper. Both B2B and B2C, there's a scorekeeper. So the person who has to deliver on the promise, the responsible one has got to respond back to the scorekeeper, the accountable one. And so the accountable one is the is the one. So we have to satisfy the responsible one and the accountable one. And there is nobody else. Nobody else. Now there's going to be other people that might be impacted, but they have zero capacity to change the outcome. They might influence it, but not by much. The scorekeeper, the accountable one, and the responsible one are the people that you sell to. Don't bother to sell to anybody else. Now you might be saying, yeah, but Mark, I've heard back in selling, you got to find your coach. You got to find the insider that's going to help you coach your way through it. That is the biggest crock of crap I have ever heard. And it fails and it slows down the sales cycle. And the reason why is because that person has zero influence, doesn't completely understand the perspective of the sale, and has no way to message your value up the food chain because what they feel is valuable is not valuable to others. Stop that kind of delaying tactic. You have to talk to the responsible people and the accountable people and leave everybody else alone. Seriously.
Right.
It just absolutely blows my mind that major corporations have bought into this garbage and they still use this garbage, and it is just a big crock of crap. I have figured out a way to do big deals on 4 calls, 4 call close on 6, 7, and 8 figure deals. I know how to do it.
How?
And it's because of what we've talked about here. We can shorten that consideration. We shorten the consideration cycle by talking to the people who will be saying yes and dialing into their motivation and their deadlines. And when we do that, it becomes completely clear. Most people go in and make a pitch in an organization, and they say things that are inappropriate, irrelevant, and dangerous. And that's what slows down the sales cycle because we've polluted the consideration cycle.
Yep. So
I know it's pretty radical.
I want to jump on that just a little bit. And this is one of the things that I found, at least in my business, is I have, and this is one of the challenges that maybe you can answer. In order for what I sell to be successful, what I've noticed is that the C-level person, the person, the person who is running the business or in charge of sales in one way, shape, or form. If I'm working with a sales manager, that's one thing, but there needs to be that buy-in from the C, the president, the whatever it is. And the reason is that if you're working with a subordinate, a lot of times what I'm doing again is creating a vision and marketing and doing the kind of things that we're talking about for a business. So it's a little bit different than selling toilet paper. But if I can't get the engagement and the buy-in from that C-level person, it tends to, there's always a core decision maker. That guy is going to drive it one way, shape, or form. And they say, okay, I'm going to delegate this down to my sales manager. I'm going to delegate it. The CEO delegates it down to the VP. One of those things happen, and you're working with them, and you're churning along, and all of a sudden you start seeing the interest dwindle, and it just dies. Can you talk to that?
Yes. Gladly. There's two components to this. First one is you have to clearly understand there are two parties that we have to play with: the decision maker and the commitment maker. The decision maker is the person who's responsible, and the commitment maker is the one who's accountable. We talked about those two. And the CEO who is saying, I want you to go figure this out, is the commitment maker. And the decision maker is the person who they've assigned this to figure out. You feel the difference here? And a lot of people have completely missed out on this. When you're in B2C, a decision maker may be one of the spouses, and the commitment maker is going to be the other spouse. It's the craziest thing. Now, there are exceptions to the rules, especially for lower consideration purchases, lower price purchases. Like, for example, you may go to the grocery store and you may buy things, and your spouse says, oh, okay, that's great. I haven't tried that brand before. Let's see if it works out. If it doesn't work out, you go, it was an experiment. Oh, well. And then, the accountability person says, don't buy that again. But that's how that works out. So that's the first component. The second component is because things fritter out, there's two aspects of that. Number one is their priorities change. So what they thought was important becomes less important because of something else that intrudes on their priorities. The idea of priority is really very simple. When we take a look at a person's objective, this is what they have to achieve or avoid. It's their task. It's why they're there. And the priorities is the order in which they achieve their objectives. It's the sequence in which they're going to approach their objectives. And there could be something that pops up that's urgent, or more important, that changes the priority and pushes your decision to a lower point in the priority chain. And you can find that out. In fact, I ask people, if people say, we're going to push this off, I say, well, let me ask you two questions here. First of all, are you making this decision based on my performance or because of a change in priority in your organization? And what that does is allows me to know whether I'm doing something incorrectly, which I want to correct, or if indeed it's just something that's outside of my control. In fact, it's outside of their control. They may want to do this, but a scorekeeper is saying, no, I want you to make this play instead of the play you've been pursuing for my own reasons. Right? So that's the first thing. The second one is that if it is a priority change, what I want to ask them is this polit something else? Because sometimes it is a political decision. Somebody else has come into their field of view, and they say, I'd really prefer to work with this team versus you. I may be the better choice, better in their terms, but a political issue. And I've run across this a number of times with my clients, where because of internal delays in the organization, somebody gets impatient and says, I need for you to change vendors because we're not getting this done. Well, the reality is it wasn't the vendor's fault. It was the internal team. But what they did is the vendor became the scapegoat, in which case you've got to go in there and find out if this was a political decision or a performance decision. So does that fill in the blanks for you?
That does fill in the blank. And then, so did you have, I think you had 3 core points that you wanted to talk about. Did we cover all 3, or we're still waiting for that third one?
I think we've covered the three core points. Unreal aspect of a broken model, Edward Bernays. I think we've covered the prime points that I wanted to cover today.
Okay, awesome.
I can give you some more, though. I got some more stuff here for you, which is
I'm sure you do. I think the key message with this is, when you start to define that success, I think the biggest thing that people have to realize is that relationships take time. And this is something that, when you hear the word prospecting, and I've seen this in a handful of different companies, some of them call it the inside sales and the outside sales. Inside sales being, these are customers that we already have, and these are basically order takers. They're fulfilling things more of a customer service sales role. The outside sales are the ones that are prospecting, trying to find the new clients and do those things. Let me know if you feel this is competent and legit. Last year, I talked to somebody who said that in sales, they found the magic formula for businesses that were the most successful in the pandemic, and I don't know if this is going to be the same moving forward, was the companies that spent 70% of their time focusing on current customers first, past customers second. And the reason past customers is because people were moving from company to company to company, and you had to go chase those people down. And a lot of times you may have kept a piece of business at that company. Now you've got an advocate in another one. So the companies that spent most of their time, 70% of their time on current customers, past customers, and 30% of their time prospecting were the ones that were the most successful last year. And the ones that won 60, 40, 80, 20 tended to struggle a little bit more. So what are your thoughts on that concept?
You and I are on the same page here. In fact, the segue is absolutely perfect. I want to talk a little bit about where you spend your time. So if you have, you should spend 50% of your effort on existing customers, 50%. And your intention is to support their career through improving their KPIs and to get referrals. That's what you're looking at to do. And so the conversation that you want to have with them is, okay, how do you get promoted? What can I do to help you make sure that your career advances here? And those are the conversations that you can have anytime, any place, anywhere, even if they don't have a budget, is to talk about what can I do to support your career? What do you need to know? Who do you need introduced to? What do we need to accomplish here? How can I help you accomplish that? And when you have that conversation at that level with your customers, you become absolutely competition proof, because all your competitors are talking about their product versus you're talking about how your product supports your customers' career growth, which is their burning issue. And this gets back to a question that I get asked on a regular basis when I do sales training. People say, Mark, how can I beat my competition? I say, you're not asking the right question. The question you need to be asking is, how can I help my customer beat their competition? Because when you do, you have no competition. And
that is so true.
And then 25% of your time on, indeed, simple twist, but all of a sudden it just changes. Then 25% of our time on known prospects. So people we know, but have, they've decided will I, but they haven't moved to which one. 25% of your time. And in those cases, your intention is to explore their interests, their values, and their key performance indicators. So you understand how you can support their yes set. Everybody's yes set comes out of supporting their key performance indicators. And the conversation lead is, I was thinking what you said about. You call them back and say, I was thinking about what you said about in our last conversation, and I've got something I want to add to that. Let's see if there's some value there. So you can open that conversation anytime, any place, anywhere by saying, Brian, I was thinking about what you told me last time. And that's the kickoff. See, that becomes really simple to have that sales conversation. You're not bothering them, you're bringing them value. And then, so that's for that 75%. You were saying 70, and I'm at 75% there. And then 15% of your time is with lost customers. Lost customers, right? People that used to buy from you and didn't anymore. And what you do there, your intention there is to win back by supporting their KPIs in a better way. And quite frankly, the way that you start the conversation is, I miss you. And we've had so much fun together. We've done some really cool things together. I miss you. There may have been some screw ups. There may have been some challenges. There may have been some changes in priorities, but I miss you. And you can have that conversation any place, anytime, anywhere. And then the last 10% is unknown prospects as target accounts. Who do you want to do business with that doesn't know you yet? That's your target account. Most people would be way better off with target accounts than broad marketing. And target marketing is way more fun, way more interesting, and way more impactful. So your intention with these people is to get an introduction, to start a conversation, to prime it's value discovery. What is it they find valuable? Find out what their KPIs are. How do they get judged? And the way that we start that conversation is, I did some research about you, and would you like to know what I discovered? Because that's what you do for target accounts. You do research. You find out what they need. You find out what their executives have stated. This is our goal. For example, in the world of IT, anybody who's saying our goal is digital transformation, well, that's how you start the conversation. No, where are you? What's your plans in digital transformation? I did some research about you. I understand that you're trying to do digital transformation. Did you know that Deloitte says that 78% of digital transformation projects fail? Do you really want that on your career? Let's talk about how we can do that. You can avoid the nasty 80% failure rate that's going on right now. That's a conversation they're going to say yes to. So that's how you spend your time with prospecting and setting things up. Are you muted?
I am muted. Yes, thank you. My dog was sitting here bugging me. So,
well, stop the muting.
no.
Your lips move, but
well,
I can't hear you speak.
I know. Well, sometimes that's better. So, but what I was saying was
Pink Floyd song.
Yes, exactly. But in the pondering, in the pondering engagement and need, okay, where people are in that journey, I think that what you're talking about with these people is that educational portion is so important for exactly what you're talking about, and that is defining what people how to convince them that there's something different, something better, something unique. I mean, that's always the thing, is what is your USP? What are you trying to get across? And so the two things that we've been working on, which are it's kind of interesting because everybody is suffering from video fatigue. I mean, just watching Zooms, even watching this today, a lot of people watch the replay. I get more comments and feedback and engagement on the replays than I do on the live, which is fine. And it's the same thing with webinars, is people will, if they're engaged in it and they want to watch it, they will go seek it out. It's less today that people actually show up live for these things. So you may get 20 people showing up live and get 150 people watching the replay. It's amazing. And the same thing goes with the concepts that we're doing with, downloadables. So in other words, we're creating an ebook. We're turning an ebook into a blog post. We're taking the blog post and turning it into an email drip. And what happens is somebody downloads the ebook, right? And they get it because they're interested in the topic, but they don't really get into the specifics. They may see the ebook, the cover is cool, they download it, it sits in their inbox. So the next thing that happens is we break it out into blog posts that take each one of those subjects. So now we've got this big thing that's broken into smaller things that, are you having problems with service? Are you having problems with deliverability? Are you having problems with reliability? Whatever those things are, it basically breaks out those problems. So say, that's my problem. That's my problem. Because it's the same core concept. It's usually more complex, but you're breaking it down so that those problems can resonate with people. And then the last piece is, when they download the ebook, they're getting automatically added to the email drip. And with the email drip, it says, hey, if you're having problems with this, if you're having problems with service, here's a couple of quick points or a couple of quick tips. By the way, we have a blog on that. And if you forgot where you put that damn ebook download it again so you can read the entire story. So what you're doing is you're creating an ecosystem around educating people, webinar, ebook, blogs, email drips. And so that there's all these different opportunities to engage with them on a more targeted need. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. And what that does, it also allows you to align with where they are in their journey. When somebody downloads your ebook, it's a will I question. They haven't got to which one yet. It's a will I. And it could be that their priorities change. And a lot of times they come along, they see, they go, oh, that's really cool. And then, squirrel, bright shining object. And then we have to redirect them back to that ebook. But the point that they've clicked and agreed to download is the beginning of that informed consent that creates the relationship that lasts a long time. And then our job is to keep nudging them gently to make sure that this is available when their priorities float back up to what it was that triggered them for that download in the first place. Now, keep in mind that the more burning the issue that you're offering the solution to, the more that they'll engage in that. And so you can get a pretty good idea of their level of motivation based on how they react. And that is, did they download it? Did they read it? Of course, we know that because of the clickable links that we have inside the ebook that they've clicked on that tells us where they are in the ebook. And if you're not using referenced downloadable click links within the ebook, then you're not getting the feedback that you need about how your book is being consumed. So make sure that you include that information in your ebooks. So, that what that means is tagging those things like, you click on the link and you've got a little tag that says this came from page 53. You go, oh, okay, they're pretty well interested. And then you can actually tailor your follow-up email to more accurately reflect what the behavior that they have had. Is that helpful?
Very helpful, yes. So, Mark, we're coming to the end of our time. If people wanted to get a hold of you and learn more, obviously watch this replay because there's a ton of great information. And is that right? Bijaco.com? Is that correct? Or did I mess it up?
Yeah, bijaco.com. Yeah, but no, right now that's right. But right now that's my Cobb website. I need to completely rework that because my business has pivoted quite a bit. But if you want to get a hold of me, have a conversation, let's talk about, if you want to talk about the topics that are coming up in my new book about leadership, about more sales, about a new approach to sales, about how do you handle the pirates, how do you create an unstoppable future with your marketing, any of those topics, I'll be delighted to have a conversation about. Or if you're looking for a CEO mentor, a CEO whisperer that can help you break this stuff down, I'm based on principles. Everything that I do is based on principles, and I don't tell you what to do. I help you figure out what to do. And so if you want to have a conversation about that, 2 ways to get a hold of me. Number 1 is marks on linkedin.com, MARKS on linkedin.com. That'll take you directly to my email, to my LinkedIn profile. There's a lot of Mark Smiths on there. I'm the only Mark S.A. Smith. Yes, I do have 2 middle names. And the other thing is go ahead and email me, mark.smith, mark.smith at Bijaco, bijaco.com. Bija stands for seed in Sanskrit. Yeah, I'm using a dead language to describe what I do. But the whole idea is that we have everything we need within us. All we need to be is nurtured, watered, and tended, and we can grow to greatness.
Awesome sauce, man. Well, thank you again for coming on. I greatly appreciate it. And again, if people want to get a hold of Mark, you can always contact me. I'll be happy to forward your information onto him as well. So if you can, if you have any questions and want to follow up on this, Mark, again, enjoy yourself, stay safe, and take videos of those damn concerts that you're going to, because I want to see live music again, my man.
I'll send you a link from the Led Zeppelin tribute band from a couple of weeks ago. That was extraordinary. They had three women. They had a woman drummer, a woman keyboard player, and a woman bass player, which made the show way more interesting. And then they had a lead singer that absolutely nailed Robert Plant.
Robert Plant.
And then a fantastic guitarist who did a decent Jimmy Page on the Les Paul. Boy, what an entertaining show.
Cool, man. All right. Well, I'm going to roll us out with some bacon and coffee music. Have a great day, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for showing up either live or on the replay. And we will see you next week on Bacon and Coffee.